All right, I will say good morning. Let's begin. So we have a number of sponsors, Baruch Hashem, for this morning's daf. To thank Alan Wiseman for dedicating the shir, the commemoration of the yahrzeit of his father, Moshe ben Laban. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah's Neshama will have an aliyah and the family in Nechama. Thank you. Milt Gertner for dedicating the shir in honor of the yahrzeit of his mother, Fanny Gertner, Fuma Bas Yitzchak Michal. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family in Nechama. Thank you. And Yisrael Shapiro and family for dedicating the shir in honor of the yahrzeit of Yisrael's mother, Devorah Bas Rabin Yamin, Yechiel Ichel Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family in Nechama. Thank you. And also we have Baruch Hashem, a Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Teves, Leah Sol, as a zechus for Refuah Shlema for her daughter Ilana Bas Esther. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Ilana together with Kol Choli Yisrael will have a complete and enduring refuah. All right, I will say with that, let's begin. A lot to do today, but very exciting. So says the Rabbi, we're picking up today's daf is Tesvav 15. We are picking up on Yudalid Amud Beis, and we are picking up 6 lines up from the bottom. So remember again, just to reorient ourselves quickly. So we had a Mishnah, a beautiful Mishnah, which taught us that although it is usher to go ahead and shecht on Shabbos, the halach is if you did shecht on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, shchita kshera. The shchita is good. Rav came along and said, that is true, but. What's the but? The but ultimately is that you can't eat it that day. Okay, so I'll say, so we're trying, and the Gemara says, whose opinion does that reflect? The Gemara said it's the opinion of Rav Yehuda. We're just trying to figure out Rav Yehuda of what and where. Which topic, which position, what are we talking about? So therefore, again, the Gemara says we tried a number of different times today. The Gemara says, Rav Yehuda Dinerosi. It's Rabbi Yehuda of the Ner. What's the case of the Ner? The Sanya. Metaltalin Ner Chadash. Ultimately, again, you could carry a new ner. Now, I will say, when the Gemara talks about a ner over here, what does ner mean? Ner means what they used to have was a earthenware utensil that had oil, and ultimately, again, had a wick which came out of it. That's what's called the ner. So the Gemara says as follows: Metaltla ner chadash. On Shabbos, you can carry a brand new ner. What's the definition of a brand new ner? A utensil that has not been used. Hasn't been used. Therefore, again, because it hasn't been used, it's not muktzah. You can carry it on Shabbos. Aval lo yashan de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot carry a ner yashan. I will say, what's a ner yashan? One that has been used. Why can't you carry a ner yashan? I will say, take a look at the second line from the bottom in Rashi, Yud Dalet Amud Beis 14b. De muktzu machmas mius. So we're going to get a lot of Hilchos Shabbos today, which is quite interesting. In muktzah, there are different categories of muktzah. One of the categories is muktzah machmas mius, which means muktzah, we'll call it because of repulsion. It's something that is quote-unquote disgusting. Something that's quote-unquote disgusting, a person doesn't really want to have any contact with. A ner, we'll say, you have to understand something. When you repeatedly used an earthenware utensil to go ahead and burn oil in it, the utensil itself just became like grimy. It just became a little, what's the technical term? Yucky, right? And therefore again, it was called muktzah machmas mius. So the Gemara says, now we'll say Rashi says over here, the muktzah machmas mius shadas katzabo, and therefore we'll say the assumption is something that is mius. A person doesn't have in mind to use over Shabbos. V'hach behema nami kishekidi shayom he muktzah machmas ever min achash lo nishchata. So we'll say it's actually quite dramatic. So if you have an animal, ultimately again that was not shechted as of the time of the onset of Shabbos, that animal, so to speak, also is quote-unquote muktzah machmas mios. It's also set aside for non-use because it's quote-unquote repulsive. Why? Because of Ever min achai. Because we'll say at the end of the shechita on Shabbos is aser. So how can you going to eat something? If you pull a limb off it, well, that's again mios as well. Therefore, again, we'll have to say that the behema is muktzah as well. And that's why, again, Rabbi Yehuda will be the one who says that even if you shecht it, the shechita will be kosher, but you can't eat it that Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, Amar de shamis le the Rabbi Yehuda, the muktzah machmas mios. Muktzah machmas isra mishamis le. So we'll say, again, you're kind of grabbing at straws over here. The case of the ner is a case of muktzah machmas mios. The case of a behema is not muktzah machmas mios. It's what we call muktzah machmas isser. Something that is muktzah because it is asser. What's asser about the behema, Rabosai? Evra min achai. That's what's asser about behema. So therefore, again, you're kind of comparing things which are not comparable. Mishamisle. So Rabosai, does Rabbi Yehuda hold about muktzah machmas isser? To which the Gemara says, yes, in this. Now, Rabosai, listen to this. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, top of Tesvav, kol nero shamatachas metaltalin. You can carry any nair that is made of metal. So I'll say ultimately, you're going to remember, same idea. So it's I guess you would call it like a lantern, but it's not really a lantern like you think about it. It's just a little oil lamp. It's an oil lamp. That's what a nair is. So we'll say if you have a nair that's made of metal, that does not become mius. That does not become, fashmutz with the oil because of the metal. So all kol nero shel matachas metaltalin. Ultimately, you can carry on Shabbos, but chutz min haner she'adliku bo ba'osa Shabbos. We'll say, of course, with one exception, which is that if you have a ner, if you have this lantern that was lit at the onset of Shabbos, we'll say that becomes muktzah. Why does it become muktzah? It's called muktzah machmas isser. Once something is kindled, you are not permitted to move it on Shabbos. So what do you see from here? You see from here that Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to the concept of muktzah machmas isser. We'll say if that's the case, then what? Let's apply this to the behema, right? A behema at the onset of Shabbos, we'll say, what's its status? What's its status? Well, technically speaking, one can make the argument that it is muktzah machmas isser. What's the isser? What's the isser? Evra min achai. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to muktzah machmas isser, would say that even if you shechted the behema on Shabbos, even though the shechita is good, remember, Rabbi muktzah status is determined when? Is determined at the onset of Shabbos bein hashmashas. So that's when the status is determined. Even if something circumstantially changes in the object over the course of Shabbos, the muktzah status remains. So therefore, if at the onset of Shabbos the animal was muktzah machmas isser, the isser of Evrim and Achai, that isser stays with it even if it's shechted over the course of Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, 1 second, V'dilma shayni hasam, maybe the case of the ner which was kindled is different. Why? The Gemara says, "Dehudachi le biadayim," because it will say the act of kindling the lantern does what? Actively sets it aside for non-use on Shabbos. So we'll say maybe that's what Rabbi Yehuda holds, that ultimately again the item remains usher over the course of Shabbos when you actively did something to set it aside for non-use, as is what happens when you kindle the ner. So we'll say, remember again, our mission is very simple here. We're just trying to figure out where is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, which would prohibit the animal for consumption if it was shechted, which would prohibit the animal for consumption on Shabbos if it was shechted on Shabbos. Just trying to identify that opinion. We'll say this is actually amazing. Rather, it is Rabbi Yehuda dimivashalhi. We'll say rather again, it's Rabbi Yehuda of the case of Bishra. We'll say this is actually a very, very important case in Hilchos Shabbos. This time, here we go. Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg. We'll say, what happens if someone accidentally does an act of bishul? You got such a good night's sleep on Shabbos night, right? For some people, that's the mark of like a successful Shabbos, right? I got 11 hours on Friday. First of all, no one needs to sleep 11 hours. I just want to go on record on that. You can sleep 11 hours. That usually 2 nights sleep. That's not 1 night's sleep. So I'll say, so again, I slept 11, and it was such a good sleep that what happened? I woke up Shabbos morning. I didn't even know what day it was. That's how good it was. I get up, I make myself an omelet, and then only one problem, which is, right, it's Shabbos. Right? So this actually, all kidding aside, this is a case that could come up in a variety of different circumstances. One, say a person does something on Shabbos which they did not realize is usher. Then someone tells them it's usher, and the result is there. I accidentally did, because there are many ways on Shabbos that you could do bishul just inadvertently. I did not realize what I did. So we'll say, so the shaila is, if you committed an accidental act of bishul, what's the status of the food? I will say, a simple example is a person goes out and takes a davarlach. A person takes a cold item, cold liquid that cooled down. Cold liquid that cooled down cannot be reheated on Shabbos, right? Because yesh bishul achar bishul. By a davarlach, we saw this already. I didn't know the halacha, or I forgot the halacha, and I heat up my soup on Shabbos morning. We'll say, right, what's the status of that soup? So we'll say, listen to this case. Havashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg, very exciting. Three-way machlokes. Says Havashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal dever Rameir. So what's Rameir has the simplest distinction. Rameir says it depends. If you did it b'shogeg, you can eat it. You can eat it. If you did it b'mezid, you can't eat it. Good. Rabbi Huda Omer b'shogeg yochal l'matzah Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you did it b'shogeg, you can eat it, but not on Shabbos. We will not let you benefit from an inadvertent act of Chilul Shabbos on Shabbos. So you could eat the soup or the omelet, you could eat it on Motzei Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. If you did it b'mezid, the food is asur forever. Forever. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler Omer, b'shogeg yochal l'motzei Shabbos la'achirim v'lo lo. B'mezid lo yochal olamis lo lo v'lo la'achir. We'll listen to this interesting shita. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says, if you did it b'shogeg, so he adopts Rabbi Huda's shita. You can't eat it that day. You can eat it Motzei Shabbos, but what? There's an additional knas, which is you, the perpetrator, cannot eat it ever. You can give it to your friend, you can give it to your family members, but you cannot eat it. However, again, if it was done b'mezid, then halacha l'maisa what? No one could eat it forever. So we'll say three-way machlokes. So the Gemara suggests over here that what? So the Gemara says, well, maybe Rabbi says, so now, maybe this is Rabbi Huda of our Mishnah, right? Or this is Rabbi Huda of Rav, I should say. So Rabbi Huda says that what? If you shecht on Shabbos, it's kosher. Now, we'll say, and but what? But what? Like Rabbi Huda said, anytime you do an inadvertent act of Chilul Shabbos, what's the halacha? What's the halacha? You cannot benefit from the act on Shabbos itself. You have to wait till Motzei Shabbos. Therefore, Rabbi Huda must hold that by Shechita as well. If you inadvertently shechted an animal on Shabbos, you cannot go ahead and get benefit from the meat on Shabbos. You have to wait till Motzei Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, V'nukma b'meisid Rabbi Meir, but I don't understand. I could just as easily set the Mishnah up as talking about what? As talking about a case of mezid, right? Where somebody shechted b'mezid, and maybe it's Rabbi Meir. To which the Gemara says, "Lo, sagdaitcha diktani dumi kippurim." Because remember again, the Mishnah quotes two cases. The Mishnah quotes a case of somebody who's shechting on Shabbos and someone who's shechting on Yom Kippur. Ma Yom Kippurim lo shna shogeg v'lo shna mezid lo achil. But say just like Yom Kippur, whether you shechted b'shogeg or b'mezid, either way, what Rabbi say, you're not eating the animal when on Yom Kippur itself. So too in the case of Shabbos, av hachanami lo shna b'shogeg v'lo shna b'mezid lo achil. So too again, Abba say the case of Shabbos has to be that whether you did it b'shogeg, whether you did it b'mezid, either way, you can't eat it. You can't eat it. You can't eat it by day. Umi matzis mukmasla b'shogeg Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll say, so now the way you're setting this up is how? You're setting up the Mishnah as dealing with a case of shchita which occurred b'shogeg. That's the way you're setting up the Mishnah. Then I will say that the case ultimately again of hashochet b'Shabbos is a case of shchita b'shogeg, and therefore again Rav comes along and says that Rabbi Yehuda holds that because it's a case of shchita b'shogeg, you can't eat it on Shabbos itself, rather you can eat it Motzei Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda, but here's the problem. See, Rabbi say the Mishnah doesn't really read well as being a case of shogeg. Why not? Because what does the Mishnah say? Hashochit b'Shabbos Yom Kippurim afa pi shemischayev b'nafsho. Afa pi shemischayev b'nafsho means what Rabbi say? Even though I'm chayev misa. Are you chayev misa for an act b'shogeg? No. I'm chayev achatos, but I'm not chayev misa. So therefore Rabbi say again, how does that stem? To which the Gemara says, no, hachi kamar. Afa pi d'b'mezid mischayev b'nafsho. The Gemara says, who? Hacha d'b'shogeg shchitasav kshera. We'll say what the Mishnah is saying is like this. Even though, if you were to shecht intentionally on Shabbos or on Yom Kippur, there would be a death penalty. There would be one. Nevertheless, if you do it b'shogeg, ultimately, again, the shchita will be good. V'nukma Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, da'amar lo shna b'shogeg v'lo shna b'mezid lo achil. I will say, so I don't understand. Why don't you set up the Mishnah as dealing as reflecting the view of Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler and say that what? Whether you went ahead and you did it b'shogeg or you did it b'mezid, ultimately you cannot eat of the shchita. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler kamaflik b'matzei Shabbos la'achirim v'lo lo. Because also remember again, Rabbi Yochanan Sandler has a very strict interpretation. Because what does he say? Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says that even b'shogeg, halacha l'maisa, Or I should say differently, Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says that on Matzei Shabbos, even if you can consume the behema, it's only permitted to others, but not to the perpetrator himself. To which the Gemara says, Velolo, Tana Didan, Shchitaso Kshera, Katani, Lo Shnalo, Velo Shnala Achir. And Rabbi say, our Mishnah does not seem to subscribe to any type of distinction like this between who it is permitted to, whether it's permitted to the person who shechted or to other people. Our Mishnah seems to give a blanket heter, right? Blanket permission for anyone to consume of this shechita that is not in conformance with the view of Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler. Tani, so we'll say fine. So therefore, the Gemara sounds like I will say that we've reached our conclusion over here, that our Mishnah reflects the view. I should say, remember again, I will say the Mishnah makes no distinction of this Shabbos thing. All the Mishnah says is that if you shecht on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, as much as ultimately this is an asur act, the shechita itself is kosher. Rav came along in the Gemara and Rav just said, by the way, the halacha is you can asur liyomei. You cannot go ahead and eat the shechita on Shabbos itself. You have to wait till Matzei Shabbos. It sounds like now we've identified the view that Rav is bringing forward, which is the view of Rabbi Yehuda by Bishul. What does Rabbi Yehuda say by Bishul? If you did it b'shogeg, what's the halacha? You cannot eat it that day. You have to wait till that night. So therefore, it sounds like we're setting up the Mishnah as a case of shchita b'shogeg. Rabbi Yehuda telling me that I cannot eat it that day. I have to wait till that evening. Okay, fine. So we'll say, so now it sounds like we're finished, but we're not. You're going to see in just a moment. Tani Tana Kamei We'll say, listen to this interesting case. So now that we brought up this Bishul case, we're going to spend a little bit of time with this. So Tani Tana Kamei Derav. Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg yochal. B'mezid lo yochal. So we'll say, listen to this. If a person goes ahead and cooks on Shabbos, so if he did it b'shogeg, if he did it, so I'm sorry, let me give the background here. Tani Tana Kamei Derav. There was a Tana who was giving a shir in front of Rav. The story is very important. So Rav is in the audience, the Tana is giving a shir. What's the halacha? He's giving a halacha shir. Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg, if one cooks on Shabbos and does so accidentally, yochal, he is permitted to eat the fruits of his labor. B'mezid lo yochal. If he does it intentionally, he cannot go ahead and eat it. Umashtik le Rav. Rav shushed. He shushed the Tana. Right? He told the Maggid Shir, shh. Right? He shushed him. So the Gemara says, whoa. Right? My time of mashtik le Rav. What's the problem here? Why are you silencing the Tana who's giving the shir? Watch this. Ilema mishum disir le Rabbi Yehuda. So maybe you'll say because Rav holds the so remember again, the Tana was espousing whose view? Whose view? Rabbi Meir. Right? This is Rabbi Meir's shita. Well, so Rabbi Meir says if it was done b'shogeg, ultimately, again, you could eat it even on Shabbos. If it's b'mezid, you can't eat it at all. That's Rabbi Meir. So if you want to say that maybe Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? If it's b'shogeg, you could eat it Matzei Shabbos. If it's b'mezid, you can't eat it at all. So maybe it's because Rav disagreed with the Tana. Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tana was espousing the view of Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara says, "Mishum desvir like Rabbi Yehuda, v'Tana tani Rabbi Meir." So the Gemara says, "Really? So Mishum desvir like Rabbi Yehuda, man the tani Rabbi Meir mashtikle." Well, so what does that mean? There's no meaning. So because Rav disagreed with the Tana, that gives Rav the right to shush the Tana. I was going to say it's machlokes. So Rav could hold like Rabbi Meir. Rav could hold like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tana could hold like Rabbi Meir. But what right does Rav have to shush the Tana for holding like Rabbi Meir? Va'od mi sarv like Rabbi Yehuda. Furthermore, I'm going to say, does Rav actually hold like Rabbi Yehuda? What does that mean? V'ham Rav Chanan bar Ami. So let's listen to this. Kimori lehu Rav letalmidei. When Rav would give halachic instruction to his talmidim, mori lehu Rabbi Meir. We'll say, listen to this. Listen to this. When Rav would go ahead and tell his talmidim how they should conduct themselves in Hilchos Shabbos, he would say to them, we paskin like Rabbi Meir. So we'll say, what does that mean? That means in a case of bishul b'shogeg, where you accidentally cook something on Shabbos, what's the halacha? If it was done b'shogeg, you can eat it right then and there. B'mezid, you can't eat it. That's how Rav would paskin for his talmidim. V'chidarish b'pirka. But when Rav would give public lectures, and when he would go ahead and darshan halacha to the masses, darish ki Rabbi Yehuda. Well, this is actually quite interesting. He'd be more machmir, and he would darshan like Rabbi Huda. Why? Mishum ame haaretz. Because Rabbi say he was afraid because of amaratzim. See, Rabbi say, what's the problem? The problem, the fear of paskening like Rabbi Meir for the masses, Rabbi say, is what? You see, if you tell people that if they accidentally cook on Shabbos, they could eat it. The definition of accident is a very loose, very loose. Right? I was so hungry that I forgot that it was Shabbos. In general, there's a concern that if we allow people to instantaneously benefit from their inadvertent acts, you're setting people up for failure to go ahead and commit inadvertent acts with greater frequency. So therefore, we'll say this is actually quite amazing. What the Gemara is now telling us is that Rav actually personally held like Rabbi Meir. And therefore, Allah said, "Mavashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg yochal." You can eat it on Shabbos. But amazing, you can't. And that's how Rav would darshan to his inner circle of Talmidim. When he would give public shiurim, he would take a more machmir stance and ultimately paskin like Rabbi Huda. V'chitema. So we'll say, now watch this. V'chitema. Tana bepirke. So we'll say, maybe you'll say ultimately again that this person was teaching this. So maybe we'll say, maybe what was happening over here is that Rav was giving the shir. And I remember again, whenever Rav taught these halachas in public, who did he paskin like? Rabbi Huda. And maybe this guy who was in the audience, this Tana in the audience, interrupted Rav and started espousing the view of Rabbi Meir, to which the Gemara says, come on. So the Gemara says, Atu kuli amal tanitzayis, la'amoritzayis. You both say, people call stuff out in shir all of the time, and no one pays attention to the guy who calls out. Who are they paying attention to? They will say to the Amora. Now remember again, I will say, you remember historically you would have a Tana who was like the Rebbe who would give a shir. But remember again, I will say, it's actually quite amazing. Sometimes the Tana wasn't necessarily blessed with oratory abilities, or for that matter, again, forget about oratory abilities, koach ha'hezber, the ability to break down complicated concepts into simple constructs. So every Tana usually had an Amora. What was the job of the Amora? Amora from Lashon of Amar. He would take the statements of the Rebbe, and he would go ahead and break them down into digestible constructs, digestible concepts for the masses. So therefore the Gemara says, if Rav is giving the shir, and you just said Rav in public paskins like Rabbi Huda, and there's a guy in the shir who calls out the shita of Rabbi Meir, no one's going to pay attention to him anyway, because ultimately, again, they're paying attention to the shit, they're paying attention to the Amora. So we'll say, so again, I just want to point out, the story kind of is left out, is left unresolved. The problem that now we have as a result of this story is what? We thought, that we had brought closure to this entire issue. Because remember, again, we're trying to figure out, Rav said on Yudalit Amud Aleph, that although the shechita on Shabbos is kosher, you can't eat it that day. So we'll say, we just got finished saying, fantastic. And whose opinion is that? Rabbi Huda. Which Rabbi Huda will say? Rabbi Huda ultimately again of Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'Shogeg. Rabbi Huda says that if you go ahead and you cook on Shabbos b'Shogeg, what's the halacha? You could eat the fruits of your labor on Maseh Shabbos, but not Shabbos. Beautiful. Rabbi Yehuda would probably hold the same thing, therefore, by Shechita. If you shecht on Shabbos, the Shechita will be kosher, but you can't eat it until Maseh Shabbos. So we'll say, here's the problem. The problem is what? Now it sounds like, we just said, that in fact Rav doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that Rav really holds like Rabbi Meir. Rav is one who made the statement on Amud Aleph to say that what? We don't eat the Shechita that day. So now we're not back to the drawing board, but we set us back a little bit. Amrav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Tana Shochet. Tana Kamei Dirav. So the Gemara says, Tana Shochet, Tana Kamei Dirav. Hashochet b'Shabbos b'Shogeg, Yochal, b'Mezid lo Yochal. So we'll say, listen to this. In reality now, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says a little bit different. That what happens? In reality, the person who called out in shir was teaching, or the person who was giving the shir was really talking about something else. He brought up the case not of Hamavashal b'Shabbos, but rather of Hashochet b'Shabbos. And he said the following, Hashochet b'Shabbos b'Shogeg yochal, b'Mezid lo yochal. So this Tana said the following statement. If someone shechts on Shabbos and he does it b'Shogeg, he can eat it, but b'Mezid he can't eat it. Amar lei, to which Rav said to him, Mai daitech, Where do you get that from? Rabbi Meir. Obviously, you must be holding like Rabbi Meir. But ad kan lo kasher Meir ela b'mevashal d'ray lokos. See, Rabbosai, but Rabbi Meir may only hold his particular shita by bishul. Why? Because Rabbosai, when you have a raw piece of meat at the onset of Shabbos and you cook it, that meat is still fit for consumption, right? You could eat raw meat, and ray lokos means literally mean you could chew on it. Apparently, people would chew on little pieces of raw meat. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, again, it's fit. It's fit. On the other hand, aval shochit de'ein roi lakos lo. I will say, but an animal that was alive at the onset of Shabbos is not fit for anything. Maybe even Rabbi Meir, who holds that halacha l'maisa mavashal b'Shabbos b'shogeg yochal, I will say it would only be true with the case of bishul, where you're taking something that was in a quote-unquote semi-usable state and making it more usable. But an animal, which at the onset of Shabbos is totally unusable, quote-unquote, and you shecht it on Shabbos, maybe even Rabbi Meir would agree that even b'shogi you can't use it on Shabbos. V'hamas nisin d'shochetu. But I will say ultimately again, but yet our Mishnah dealt with the case of shchita. V'amar Rav Huna darash b'chiyah b'Rav mishmei d'Rav asura ba'achila liyoma. But I will say yet we have Rav commenting on our Mishnah that what? Commenting on our Mishnah that halacha l'maisa shochit b'Shabbos, the shchita will be good, but you can't eat it that day. V'nas bin chavrei l'meim Rabbi Hudihi. So I'll say ultimately again in this entire time we're saying that Rav is quoting the shchita of Rabbi Huda, but maybe not. Ha Rabbi Meir shari. But I will say ultimately again it appears that would mean that what? That Rabbi Meir would even agree that in the case of shchita, you could actually consume the meat that day. To which the Gemara says no. Ki shari Rabbi Meir. I'll say when does Rabbi Meir permit things b'shogeg? Kigon shahaya lachola mi ba'od yom. So this is actually quite an interesting qualification. When does Rabbi Meir, I'll say, allow you to eat of the bishul that day? That's when, for example, a person had a member of his household who was a chola already on Erev Shabbos. And I will say, now look at Rashi for just a moment. Shahaya lachola me Erev Shabbos. Dechevan deshogeku kidu ukminon. Veleka iser Shabbos. Veleka iser Shabbos. Iser mukta nami leka do'omedes l'shchita haisa ben hashmashos. Va'afilu b'Shabbos mishum dechola depikuach nefesh dochas. Listen to this interesting case. So we'll say, it could very well be that according to Rabbi Meir, the case that would work would be as follows. Let's say a person has a family member who is a serious chol at the onset of Shabbos. I will say, the halacha is you're allowed to shecht an animal for the sake of a chola. Right? If somebody is obviously pikuach nefesh, you could. Let's say someone needs meat. Remember again, I will say, we saw in Gittin that the remedy for a lot of things, from the perspective of the Gemara, was what? How do you remedy most ailments in life? Fatty meat, right, and strong wine. There's a lot to be said for that, right? Fatty meat and strong wine. So a person has a chola, they have to give him meat. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? What's the halacha? So you could shecht for him on Shabbos. So we'll say, so the Gemara suggests over here that interestingly enough, maybe the case according to Rabbi Meir is where a person had a chola in his home on Erev Shabbos, ben hashmashos, which means that technically speaking, this animal was fit to be slaughtered already then. And therefore, what I end up shechting it b'shogeg on Shabbos. So we'll say in that kind of case, interestingly enough, the animal was technically speaking fit for use, so to speak, at the onset of Shabbos. I ended up shechting it accidentally, but on a technical level, it was fit for use. Ihachi, if that's the case, my time Rabbi Yehuda the Aser. Then Abba say, if that's the case, then why did Rabbi Yehuda say that if you end up shechting it b'shogeg, it would be Aser the entire day? Kigon shaya lechola v'hivri. Because Rabbi Yehuda's case would be, yes, you had a person in your home who was a chola, sheyesh bo sakana at the time of ben hashmashos, but then what? Rabbi say, Baruch Hashem, he had a refuah shalema. And therefore, again, when you subsequently shecht the animal b'shogeg, ultimately, again, this animal is still considered to be a muktzah animal, and therefore, halacha l'maisa cannot be eaten that day; can only be eaten at night. V'chi hada amarav achar barada amarav amrli amrav Yitzchak barada amarav hashochet lechola b'Shabbos asr lebari. They will say, yeah, we had another statement in the name of Rav that if you shecht for a chol on Shabbos, so let's say I have a license to shecht on Shabbos because someone in my home is chas v'shalom dangerously ill. The halacha is that what? The chol is permitted to eat of the meat, but someone who is healthy is not permitted to eat of that meat. But yet, hamavasha l'chol b'Shabbos, mutter lebari. Yet I will say, interestingly enough, what? Interestingly enough, if you cook for a chola on Shabbos, if there's leftover food, ultimately what? A healthy person is permitted to eat of it. My taima, to which he wants, what's the reason for this? Hi roi lokos v'hai ein roi lokos. We'll say the simple distinction is that when I cook food for a chola on Shabbos, the assumption is what? That food was fit for consumption even before the act of bishul, at least in some limited form. Therefore, again, because it was fit for consumption beforehand, when I cook it for the chola, a bari is permitted to partake ultimately, again, of the leftover food. However, again, in the case of shchita, I will say, that animal was not fit for anything prior to shchita. I have a license to shecht it on behalf of the chola, but the bari is not permitted to partake of it at all. Amar Papa says, well, it depends. Pamim shashochet mutter. Papa says there are times where if you shecht an animal on Shabbos, it is permitted for everyone. Really, this is a case of shechting for a chola. There are times where if I shecht for a chola on Shabbos, everyone is permitted to partake of it. When is that, for example? Kigon, shahaya lachola mi ba'od yom. But it's actually an interesting case. Let's say again, Ruvain has a household, and there is someone in his household who is seriously ill prior to the onset of Shabbos. So ill that if his illness continues, he would have a license to shecht on Shabbos. So we'll say in such a case like that, we would say that animal, technically speaking, was already muchan for shchita at bein hashmashos. Therefore, again, it's not really quote-unquote muktzah. Because of that, if you subsequently shechted on Shabbos, not only is the meat permitted to the chola, but Rav Papa posits that what? It would be mutter for everyone. V'amavashal aser. And yet there are times, ultimately again, where for cooking on Shabbos, would only be usher, let's say, for the chola, but not for anyone else. When would that be? I will say, kigon shekatzatz lo dalas. So I will say the case would be is, let's say I cut down, or I detach a gourd from the ground on Shabbos. So we'll say, so in that case, if the chola needs it, the chola could eat it. But for anyone else, it would be muktzah. Why? Because at the onset of Shabbos, it was still attached to the ground. Amr Abdi min Arda. So Abdi min Arda said, "We'll say, Salas Hilchasa. What is the halacha? Hashochet lechola b'Shabbos mutar lebari." Right, mumtza. So we'll say ultimately, again, listen to this. So the halacha is that I should say, Rav Dimi said that the halacha is if you shecht for a chola on Shabbos, a bari, a healthy person, is permitted to go ahead and eat of the meat. Now, obviously, he can't cook the meat, but he could chew on the meat. Umtza means he could chew on the meat. My time, what's the reason? Kevan di efshar lekizayis basar below shchita, ki kashachet adaited the chola kashachet. Because Rabbi say, here's what's interesting. Even though the chola maybe only needs a little piece of meat, Rabbi say, but what's the problem with shchita? What's wrong with shchita? There's no such thing as a little shchita, right? There's no such thing as I'll just shecht enough for the chola. It's all or nothing. Therefore, we'll say the entire act of shchita is considered as if it's been done for the chola. Therefore, even a bari is permitted to go ahead and chew on a piece of meat. And there also this indeed is halacha l'maisa. If somebody cooks for a chola on Shabbos, let's say you have a license to cook on Shabbos for a chola, a healthy person is not permitted to partake of that food. Why? Gezerah shema yarbe b'shila. So we'll say this is quite intuitive, because if we allow the healthy people in the household to start eating of the cholas food, then we'll say what's going to end up happening, right? So first of all, suddenly no one's feeling well. Right. No one's feeling well. It's like a school morning, right? No one's feeling well suddenly. We'll say so. Therefore, again, so halacha l'maisa, you can't allow anyone else to partake of the food of a chola. Shema yarbe b'shvilo, lest you come to a circumstance or a situation where halacha l'maisa, you're adding in food for the bari. I will say, just so you know, the way we paskin halacha l'maisa in the case of bishul. So we'll say, so what comes out over here, just the way the Gemara ends up saying over here is that halacha l'maisa hashochid b'Shabbos. If you end up ultimately again shechting b'Shabbos, right? If you end up shechting on Shabbos, halacha l'maisa, again, the shchita is kosher. Assuming it was not done for a chola, we wait till Motzei Shabbos ultimately to partake of that shchita. Both saying Hilchos Shabbos, Bishul b'Shabbos, Simin Shin Yud Ches and Shulchan Aruch, we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore, again, in the case of Bishul b'Shabbos b'Shogeg, if halacha l'maisa, again, it was If halacha l'maisa again it was done b'mezid, then I will say it's aser the olam. It's aser the olam. Let me say it differently. If you did it b'mezid, I'll read the Shulchan Aruch. Hamavashel b'Shabbos o sha'asa achas mishar malachos. So we'll say, so the Shulchan Aruch is very clear to say this is the halacha for all malachos on Shabbos, not just bishul. If a person does bishul on Shabbos b'mezid, aser lo li olam ulachirim muter l'matzeh Shabbos miyad. So we'll say, if you cook intentionally on Shabbos or shech intentionally on Shabbos, the food or the shechita is aser for you forever, but for others it will be permitted on matzeh Shabbos. Ubeshogeg, what if you did it b'shogeg? Aser bo bayom gam lachirim. So we'll say no one is permitted to partake of it that day. Ula erev muter gam lo miyad. But we'll say on matzeh Shabbos you're permitted to partake of it immediately. That is true both for bishul as well as for shechita. Good, says the Mishnah. We'll say interesting Mishnah. Hashogeg b'magol yad. We'll say somebody shechs. We're not talking about which type of utensils are usable for shechita. Someone shechs. We'll say magol yad is like a handheld sickle. A handheld sickle. So you shech with a magol yad, bitzur. We'll say tzur is a sharpened rock. Kana is a sharpened reed. Shechita ukshera. Ultimately, again, the shechita is good. Hakol shochtin. Everything is shecht. We'll see what this statement means. Uli olam shochtin, and we shecht forever. We'll see what that means. Uba kol shochtin, and you could shecht with everything, with the exception of the following items. Chutz mimagil katzer. We'll say except for a hand. Magil katzer means a short sickle. A short sickle. V'hamegira, a saw. Shinayim means a tooth. Tziporin, a nail. They will say, what's the common denominator amongst all of these things? They don't necessarily cut, but rather they rip, they tear. So we'll say, so essentially we're going to see anything with a serrated edge cannot be used, because remember again, shechita must be done with cutting, not ripping. So we'll say, so says the Gemara, let's analyze this. We're going to go through all of these items. Hashochet di'evet in lechatchila lo. So let's remember again, the lashon of hashochet b'magol yad, to shecht with a hand sickle. So I'll say ultimately again, the lashon of hashochet is a lashon of b'di'evet, right? So b'di'evet, yes, lechatchila no. So b'shlam magol yad, so I understand why lechatchila we don't want you to use a hand sickle. Dilma asil avid beidach kisa. So we'll say apparently a hand sickle itself had two sides. There was a smooth edge and a serrated edge. So you're allowed to shecht with the smooth edge. You can't shecht with the serrated edge. So I understand why lechatchila, therefore, we would rather you not shecht with a hand sickle, out of a concern that what? You may come to use the serrated edge. We'll say ultimately again, when it comes to a tzur, to a sharpened rock, a sharpened stone, or a sharpened reed, Rabbi say, why can't I use those items lechatchila? Or I should say differently. The Mishnah sounds like you can't use lechatchila, it's only kosher b'di'evet. Because remember again, how did the Mishnah read? Hashochet b'magol yad b'tzur b'kana shchitas ukshir. Rabbi say, that lashon means lechatchila you should not use these items, but b'di'evet, if you did, the shchitas kosher. But what's wrong with a sharpened stone? What's wrong with a sharpened reed? After all, l'minhi, bakol shochtin, you could shecht with anything. Bein b'tzur, with a sharpened rock. Bein b'schuchis, a sharpened glass. Bein b'kromish shalkan, a sharpened reed. So from here you see that what? These items are usable, even lechatchila. So why does the Mishnah say it's only b'di'evet? Lo kasha, here we go. Kan b'talush, kan b'mechuber. I will say, listen to this. We're talking about different kinds of cases. One is where the item is talush. If the item, Rabbi say, is detached, then halacha l'maisa, you could use it even to shech lechatchila. If for some reason your stone or your reed is attached, so lechatchila we would rather you not shecht with it, but b'di'evet, if you did, the shechita is still kosher. Don't Rav Kahana, because also listen to this, because Rav Kahana said, hashochet b'mechuber lekarka, if you shecht with an item that is attached to the ground, Rebbe posel, Rebbe says that the shechita will not be good. Again, Rabbi say, we'll see why this is. Rebbe says, if you attach with something attached to the ground, the shechita is not good. Rabbi Chia machshir. But Rabbi Chia says that no, the shechita is kosher. The adkan lo kamach Rabbi Chia ela b'di'evet. to even Rabbi Chia, who says that shechita was saying that as mechubar lekarka is kosher, there's only b'diavad. Aval lechatchila lo, but lechatchila you should not use saying as mechubar lekarka. So the Gemara says b'mayo kimta. Therefore, how are you establishing our Mishnah? Rabbi Chia b'diavad. Therefore, I will say our Mishnah when it says that you could use a stone or a sharpened reed, and it says that you could use it b'diavad, but lechatchila no, it must be going according to Rabbi Chia, and it must be talking about a case of mechubar. To which the Gemara says, but 1 second, but that which we learned, bakol shochtin, you can shecht with whatever you want, bein betalush, bein mechubar, whether it's detached or attached, bein shasakin lamala v'tzar behem lamata, whether the knife is on top and the neck of the animal is below, bein shasakin lamata v'tzar behem lamala, or whether the knife is below and the neck of the animal is above. So we'll say that sounds like you could shecht in all circumstances, whether it is mechubar or talush, money. So we'll see whose opinion does that reflect? Lo Rabbi v'lo Rabbi Chia. It's not Rabbi nor is it Rabbi Chia. Why? I Rabbi Chia di evet in l'chatchila lo. If it's Rabbi Chia, even Rabbi Chia only holds that you can use mechubar b'di evet, but not l'chatchila. Rabbi di Eved nami lo, and if it's Rabbi Paskins, that even bidi Eved, if you shecht with something that is mechubar, it is not good at all. To which the Gemara says, the Olam Rabbi Chia. Really, it's Rabbi Chia, and therefore it's saying that bidi Eved is good. Lo Olam Rabbi Chia, va'afil lechatchila, v'ha dekamiflegi bidi Eved. But I will say, so why are they arguing with bidi Eved? Lo di'acha kocha de Rabbi, to teach us the strength of Rabbi's position. That Rabbi will say that if you use something that is mechubar, it is puzzle even bidi Eved. I ve'ela masnisin diktani hashochet di'evet in lechatchila lo money. Let's go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah which said hashochet. If one shech, so we'll say that is lashon of b'di'evet, and it tells you that if I use a tzur or a kana, if I use a sharpened rock or a sharpened reed, b'di'evet lechatchila it is not. Whose opinion does that reflect? Money. Lo Rabbi v'lo Rabbi Chia. It's neither of them. Why? Because it says the Gemara, I Rabbi Chia fi lechatchila. If it's Rabbi Chia, he should say lechatchila I could even use this sharpened reed or stone. I Rabbi di Eved nami lo. And if it's Rabbi, will say then what? If it's Rabbi, then even with the Eved it should not be good. To which the Gemara says the Olam will say with this will stop. The Olam Rabbi Chia fafi lechatchila. In reality, our Mishnah reflects the view of Rabbi Chia, who holds that you could use mechubar even lechatchila. Umasnisin diktani ashochet Rebbehi, and ultimately again our Mishnah reflects the view of Rebbe. Kashid Rabbi Adrei. Well, say how can you say that? We just said that Rebbe holds that if you use mechubar, it is puzzle even bidi eved, and yet you're telling me now that our Mishnah reflects the view of Rebbe, and the Mishnah says that if you used it bidi eved, it's good. Lo kashya kan b'mechubar meikaro. So the Gemara ends off with a very interesting distinction, which we'll pick up with tomorrow, which is, I will say there is a distinction between something that is mechubar meikaro, something which is and has always been attached to the ground, versus something which was detached and subsequently attached. If something was mechubar meikaro, attached from the beginning, Rebbe will hold that item is puzzle for shchita, versus something which was originally detached, subsequently attached, which according to Rebbe will what Rebbe will say, be kosher, b'di'evet. Where that distinction comes from and the deeper meaning of that distinction, Emir Hashem, we'll see tomorrow.